Hello and welcome everyone to Rift Happens, a Coach Rivals podcast. We are here with episode 5. I am one of your hosts, Justin T, along with my fabulous co-host who's right below me there, Ronnie B. Ronnie, happy Tuesday and happy episode 5.
Yeah, happy Tuesday, Justin. Really excited to be here. It's been a whirlwind of a season so far. We're just past the halfway point as of last week, so really exciting to see teams kind of putting it all out there still. And we still got a couple teams even hunting for their one team still hunting for their first win. So really exciting stuff shaking out as we progress through this incredible season.
Yeah, we have so much to talk about today, and I think this is a really exciting episode because we're bringing some new things. And I know that we kind of mixed up our structure on the episodes, where instead of going straight into just Coach Rival specific info, we've reversed it and tried to have League of Legends general info at the beginning, because we may have a lot of listeners hopping in and just catching us through searching their favorite podcast provider or what have you. So that's what we'll be doing from now on. But for those of you that are brand new to us, you don't know what Coach Rivals is. We're a collection of high school and collegiate coaches all across the world now. Apparently, we're international, and we're just all coming together to push esports forward, Scholastic esports. So catch more info about us over at coachrivals.gg and check us out on all of those social media platforms. We're on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch, where some of you are probably watching right now. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right into this, shall we? Let's go with our first question. So we did pose a question to our listeners in the Coach Rivals Discord server about champions that they absolutely 100% hate playing against. But Ronnie, I wanted us to kind of kick it off first and share the champions that we just despise playing against in League of Legends. Maybe even divulge some secrets that maybe we have picked up over the years of counterplay, if however little counterplay there may be. But I don't even want to do that, and then we'll get into some of our listener submissions. So, Ronnie, you want to kick us off first with the champion that you absolutely hate playing against?
Yeah. So when we were kind of brainstorming for our new weekly segment, Justin reached out and said, hey, send me your three. And it took me a minute, right? Because when you boil down why you hate a champion, there could be so many reasons. It could be, maybe you don't understand how it works. Maybe you played against it once and it dominated you, and you're like, I don't want to do that again. Right? But there's several different reasons why you might hate dealing with a certain champion. So we boiled it down to three each. Because it's really hard to just pick one. And you guys, I know some of you guys pick more than one, but yeah, it's really tough to pick one whenever you're thinking about this. So my first one, in no particular order, I believe my first one, if I'm not mistaken, was Jax. Right? Is that right, Justin?
Yes,
Can we reveal
it is
it?
Jax.
Yes. Okay. I'm like, what was it? Was it number one? Okay.
All right. So why do you hate playing against Jax so much? What's the big deal there?
So Jax is if you haven't played the game too long, right? Jax has a dodge mechanic. Dodge is basically, right, you can just you can ignore auto attacks, right? They don't hit you, they don't do any damage. Dodge used to be a mechanic that you could build through items, right? Like you could pick up an item and you could build the dodge stat for any character you were playing. You can max it out, go crazy, and just kind of run through a game. Well, Riot took that stat away from all items a few years back, and they left it on Jax, right? Jax is the only champion in the game who can still use the dodge function, which annoys me to no end, right? I'm like, guy, okay, so basically when you hit this button, now I just have to just walk away from you. There's literally nothing else I can, okay, I guess I got to walk away. So it's really annoying to me because it doesn't feel very satisfying to play against him. Plus, Jax can go jungle, he can go top, certain meta right now with the whole hull breaker thing. I bet he's going to start to kind of creep back into top lane meta again because his auto attacks can just whack towers to no end. I don't like him, and I don't want to play against him. Auto ban.
Yeah, I think the flexibility of Jax is a big thing. I like that you touched on the dodge mechanic because that is. It used to be so much worse back when you had to build out your rune pages. You had to, for those of you that are new to League of Legends, you weren't just gifted rune pages back in the day. You had to buy rune pages,
buy them.
And then you had to buy runes to populate them with. And one of those runes was dodge, so you could like stack a full page of dodge runes and run Jackson. He would just be innate. He would just be dodging auto attacks all over the place without even activating his counter strike.
Neo in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, yeah, Jax is definitely one of those that are just with the flexibility. And once he gets ahead, he can be like really difficult to deal with. So, yeah, I feel you on that one. My first one is going to be Olaf, and so it's no secret. I've talked about how awful I hate, how much I hate Olaf. I've even said don't pick Olaf in Coach Rivals whenever we've discussed picks that we want to see in Coach Rivals. As an ADC main, I cannot stand Olaf. He's got that unique ultimate with Ragnarok where he could just charge at you, barrel through any sort of CC you want to lay at him. And as an ADC player, you really depend a lot on positioning and peel from your teammates. Like if you don't have a front line or your positioning is absolute garbage, you can't position in a fight correctly, then you just get completely eaten up no matter how far ahead you are. Like I could be 100% absolutely fed as any ADC, but if an Olaf is halfway decent and is able to get to me, then I'm pretty much screwed. Like there's really not a whole lot I can do. I cannot stand that champion, and I really hope that someday there's an answer for his ultimate.
Yeah, right. Yeah, other than I guess just like terrain, that's your only hope is just terrain, right? Other than that, he's coming.
And and it forces me to build stuff like, so I could build like Gale Force to maybe like
Hmm.
dash further away to increase the distance between myself and the Olaf, or I could get something like Immortal Shield Bow, where I can maybe get enough life steal to try to sustain through what he's doing, but he does true damage and I don't do true damage, so it's like okay, he's an abomination. I can't stand him.
Yeah, he's tough, man. Yeah, as an Olaf player, I wish I could relate to your struggle, but no, no, I get it, I get it. Okay, so number two for me again in no particular order, but this guy I really dislike him specifically because of his one spell, his Q. It's Shaco. I thought, okay, so kind of a dumb moment for me, right? I didn't realize. I thought Shaco's invisibility thing, where he can like wall hop, was his R, right? Like, okay, his ultimate, he's got a, at least it only comes up every once in a while. No, man, like his invisibility wall hop thing, it's like an 8 second, 12
Hmm.
second cooldown. Like what? What? It just feels so impossible to like lock him down if he starts to run through the jungle. You can fake people out. You run into the left, you hit Q, and you start going to the right, and you kind of see everybody pile off to the left because no one predicted the move, or you can kind of flash over the dragon wall and stuff. I mean, it just feels so unfair for him to get a little flash every 8 or 9 seconds plus invisibility. It's like, I don't know. It's one of those things again where it doesn't feel like there's a lot of counterplay to it, right? It's really good about nerfing certain things like Galio's flash taunt, right? Whenever you used to be able to start your taunt as Galio and then flash into a team, and
Hmm.
then the taunt is still channeled. They took that away, right? Because there's not a lot of counterplay. They thought it was like really unfair. Well, I feel like Shaco has that same kind of characteristic where it's like, bro, how am I supposed to deal with this guy? He's always invisible and he's always hopping over walls. So yeah, I don't like him. If I'm playing jungle, auto ban.
Yeah, he and Shaco's another one of those champions that he really can style on you. I mean, just
Yeah.
based on the mechanics built into his kit, like Olaf and Jax, the two previous champions we mentioned. You know what they're going to do. They're going to run at you. Like you
Mhm.
see them coming. There aren't a whole lot of surprises. Yeah, Jax can hop over a wall, but a Shaco, a really good Shaco, is super deadly and so dangerous. And right now, he's really strong too with the new Stride Breaker changes.
Mhm.
The 90% slow when he pops out of his deception. So he'll drop a box and then 90% slow you with Stride Breaker. And so used to, you could see a box drop and you could respond fast enough to be able to get out of the range. You can't do that anymore. So now you're insta feared by the new Shaco, or the new way of playing Shaco. Yeah, super frustrating. Very very little counterplay. I'm with you 100%.
I hate him. All right. On to your second one, Justin.
All
What you
right,
got?
my number two is Nocturne. Kind of in the same
Mm,
vein as Shaco. He's really strong right now with the Stride Breaker changes. He is just absolutely a terror to play against, especially in solo queue, because you do not have the communication aspect with your teammates. You're not all sitting in Discord where you can say, "All right, everybody group up on me." There are some elements to be able to, like if you huddle up as a group, as soon as Nocturne dives in, maybe you can blow him up before he blows up your main carry. But when a Nocturne is in the game, it makes it difficult for you to play any other play style other than let's group as five. Because like you can't split push when you're playing against a Nocturne, because he's always looking to jump on the split pusher, especially if he's stronger than the split pusher. So unless you've got somebody that's uber fed on your team that has no regard for the Nocturne, then you're going to really struggle against it. And the only champion that I've found that I can really play into Nocturne and still have a decent amount of time and not hate myself is Xayah. Like I can ulti when Nocturne ultis into me, but if I have to pick my ADC before the Nocturne is revealed and I pick anything other than Xayah, then I'm really just hating my role because I cannot do anything against that champion.
yeah, you feels like you have no agency throughout the
Yeah.
whole game because as it goes on, right, his ult range increases. So
Yep.
eventually, it's like, oh, okay, well now I'm safe here. No, now I'm not safe here anymore. I got to go all the way back to my tower. So it's really difficult to gauge it because you think you got a handle on it, and then the ult range increases when he hits 11, and again when he hits 16, and it's really yeah, it's really impressive. I mean, short of having a Thresh as just support and him like literally hooking him out of the air as he comes, there's like no counterplay for it when he holds you. You're basically dead. So yeah, I hate it too. Good point. Okay, so number three for me. Let's see, who did I put? Let's reveal it, Justin. Ah, that's right. I did put Kane. I could probably put any champion in this third spot, right? I could name them all eventually. I hate them all, but I love them all. Uh, but Kane, right? The reason I chose him is because kind of the same as Shaco, right? Like invisibility, or Jax, right? Invulnerability because of dodge. Well, Kane is the only champion that can interact with the environment the way that he does, right? With terrain.
Mm-hmm.
So he can kind of like warp through terrain, and I can't do anything while he's in the wall, right? I can see him coming. There's that little ball showing me where he's trying to exit. I can kind of tell my people, hey, watch out, someone's coming. But like if my support isn't listening, or the mid laner is about to get ganked or something, and I'm like pinging like crazy, and no one's listening to me, I mean, you're dead, right? As soon as Kane comes out of that wall, he's gonna knock you up, and he's gonna ult you, and no matter if you retreat to your tower or not, there's not a lot you can do at that point. So his ability to do some cool single target damage, but also to have utility in team fights and the invulnerability while in walls and stuff, it just feels so difficult to deal with. And anytime Kane is popular in the meta, I pretty much ban him. I mean, he can farm like Graves. He can gank like nobody's business, like Hecarim, and it's like, I hate him. Get out of here. Auto ban.
Have you ever played into a Kane that has a Yumi on his team?
Oh my goodness, I couldn't even imagine.
That's awful. The Kane will get Moby boots, and then he'll have Yumi on top of him, and so he's not the only one coming through the wall. You have a tapeworm that's attached to him, and speeding him up with the E,
The
and so
tapeworm.
so you have Kane with zoomies, and you
Yeah.
cannot possibly get away from him. It is that is a miserable experience. But again, another one of those champions that once that champion gets ahead, you almost feel like so powerless. Like, what can I
Yeah.
possibly do with him or do against him because he's so far ahead?
Yeah, just unplug your keyboard at that point. Go home.
GG, go next.
Yes, exactly.
All
All
right.
right, what you got,
All
Justin?
right. My last one is Gwen. I cannot stand this champion. I think that her kit is just so overloaded with. She has the dash, she has where she can't be targeted, and then the ability around her where she can't be targeted and she can move it one time too and still be untargeted is kind of crazy. And once she still has a pretty decent range, even though she's melee. Like her scissors like still do pretty decent range. So as an ADC, when the counterplay is okay, she puts her shield up. Oh, well, you have to be inside of the shield thing with her, and then you can damage her. Like, yeah, but then I'm in range of her like melee attacks. And I can't do anything. Or you're like, oh, well, just kite back. But she has a dash. Like, what am I
Yeah.
supposed to do? It requires a lot of team coordination to say, okay, her shield's up, disengage. And that was something that you and I were talking about earlier before we went live, was that a lot of the counterplay to some of these champions involves the team being okay with making the call of, we're going to disengage right now. Like, it's okay. That was a key ability that was used. Bail out for a second, let it drop, and then we're going to re-engage. And that's not really a skill that you find in solo queue, especially in low elo. I mean,
Yeah,
where
right.
all of us are, right? You don't like disengage like, okay, now we're gonna go back in. It's normally like, okay, the Gwen shows up, we're gonna drop every single ultimate and ability on her, and then when it's time to re-engage, we have nothing to work with. So
Yeah.
it's she's just got a very frustrating kit right now that's complicated to deal with. I'd be interested to see if they tune her a little bit more as as more data comes in. Maybe I'm just overreacting, and as players the pro players get to have more experience with her, then people will develop some of those counter strategies. And every champion's really kind of busted on first release because nobody knows how to play against that particular champion, and then the player base is really smart and they figure out something later on. So I don't know. I'm waiting for one of those things to happen because for me, if Nocturne's already banned, I'm banning Gwen.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's funny that Gwen's the only one on this list that's made it here. Partly because she's a new champion. You look at like Nocturne has been considered for reworks and stuff at this point. Jax and Olaf and Shaco. I mean, they've been in the game since like season 2, season 1, if I had to guess. So really, 5 out of these 6 champions are pretty well established, pretty ingrained in the game at this point, and there's still kind of trouble. Gwen, to your point, she's newer, so it's harder to kind of get a read, which also makes her more difficult to deal with. There's not like a blueprint on like, okay, fighting a Gwen, you're playing as this champion, this is how you win. Right. So yeah, really cool take there. I like that you threw the Gwen in. I wasn't expecting that. I thought you were gonna say something like Yuumi or whatever, the tapeworm. I get it.
Well, so and chat did point out that it's interesting that all of the champions are junglers. So Bearcat Esports, these are all junglers with the exception of the Gwen, or at least they can go jungler. But we have seen Gwen in the jungle a little bit. I think Xerxes played Gwen in the jungle. But yeah, I think junglers, for as much like flack as junglers get, and where the data shows that people don't want to play jungle, and Riot making changes to the jungle to make it more enticing for players, it's still a very, very powerful role and can dictate a lot of how the game goes, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, exactly. I think it's interesting because we both play different roles. I'm a jungle main, you're an ADC main, right? And some folks in the chat, they main different roles as well. But I think we can all agree, like, yeah, someone else said it in chat too. Good junglers are scary, right? When you know macro movements and you can also execute your champion really well, yeah, you're going to be a terror. And if you don't know those things, then you're going to have a bad time playing League of Legends, that's jungle,
Absolutely. So we're going to get into some of our listener submissions, and then this will be an opportunity maybe for Ronnie and I to throw some input in there if we have some experience with the champion that's mentioned in our listener submissions. Maybe we can offer some advice there. But the first one is from B Wims. This is Brad in Georgia. The champion that he absolutely hates playing against is Samira, and because he says she can single-handedly win the game if she's fed. So Samira is Brad's pick for champion he absolutely hates to see. And I was there for a while. She was insta banned for me when she first came out, but as people started to get the hang of like her limitations, I've seen her kind of fade out of that popular. I've started playing her a lot more now because she does still have that snowbally potential, but she's not as unbearable for me now as she was when she came out.
Yeah, Samira, I remember on release, right? She had that weird mechanic where you can like flick a coin away and you like lose some of your own money and stuff. And it was like, oh, this seems really gimmicky and weird. And that's about as much as I know about Samira. I get that she has like a complete win wall like Yasuo, and that feels really unfair because no matter what you do, she can kind of block it. And yeah, like she's got the ability to run away with a game, but I don't have any experience with Samira personally, so take Justin's advice on this one.
Sure. All right, I got you. Okay, so she does have a moving wind wall. So as much as people may hate Yasuo's wind wall, Samira has a moving wind wall. It circles around her. It travels with her anywhere she moves. It does have a really high cooldown though. So it's kind of one of those where we talked about earlier where it's difficult playing into a champion because our typical mindset is I'm going to blow everything at one time on this one particular champion to try to delete the champion off the map. But you really, with Samira, you want to bait out, Bearcat Esports called out in chat, you got to bait out the W, which is her win wall. So she can throw that up, and when it's up, just know that, okay, there's I have this little reprieve where I'm not going to cast any abilities or else anything that's a projectile, of course. Um, so that also means that when you're playing against her in lane, you only need to send like one projectile at a time. You don't need to just be sending a ton of stuff at Samira because she's getting more value out of that W the more stuff that she blocks. The other thing too is saving a hard CC ability for her for when she ults, similar to playing against Katarina. Like one of the big things with Katarina, once she starts ulting, she shreds, she does a ton of damage. But if you're playing as like a Leona, then hold your ultimate or hold your Q. Don't blow all of it at one time on initiating the fight or anything like that. Make sure you always save a CC ability for when she's about to ult, and you know when she's about to ult because of the Devil May Cry mechanic that they have built in, where the style points I think is like it's so cool and it's so fun playing. It's like a little mini game when you're playing Samira. You've got to alternate your abilities and your attacks, and once you get up to that S rating, which is visible to everybody in the game, once she hits that S rating, then she's gonna ult. She may dash in and ult. She does get resets on her E when she gets a kill. She can dash through another enemy, but that's what I would say. She is really low range, so you can kind of keep her kind of far back and poke at her. She does have the W to try to counteract that, but again, that W is like a one-time use. So that's what I would say as far as Samira for advice for her. But yeah, definitely could be a pain to deal with, especially when she's fed.
Well said. Yeah. So maybe some longer range champs like Caitlyn, maybe Ezreal,
Mm-hmm.
kind of layer in some poke and then let her come to you at half health because she's not going to be able to have as much success if she's at half health and you've been poking her successfully. Yeah, good
Right.
point.
Yeah, for sure. So, response number 2, listener submission, we have from Mr. Hernandez Teaches from Texas. The champion that he absolutely hates playing against is, he didn't give an explanation, but I think we all know why. He hates playing against ranged top laners. So, what ranged top laners do you think he's talking about there, Ronnie?
Yeah, probably at the top of the list is like Vayne.
Mm-hmm.
Lucian is up there, right? You've got these weird ADC kind of like champions that can kind of flex to top lane. Fiora, not Fiora. What's her name? Bird Lady. Gosh, I'm
Oh,
blanking
Quinn.
right now. Quinn, yeah.
Yeah.
Quinn's another one. She's actually
Bird
like,
lady.
yeah, Bird Lady. God, that's so embarrassing. Uh, she's like actually listed as a top lane
Mm-hmm.
champion. So you're like you know whittle it down to top, and she shows up on the list. It's like, bro, that's against the rules. That's illegal.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really annoying. Oh yeah, maybe Timo kind of counts a little bit
Yep.
as a ranged top laner too.
Timo.
Uh,
Yeah. Coop is in chat right now.
he's like leaving one out. Yeah, Timo's another one, right? So a lot of ranged top laners, what they have in common is they are ranged, right? So they don't use melee attacks like most top laners typically would. When you go top lane, most of the time you're building kind of a short range tank style champion. You're looking to basically kind of scale, right? You don't want to start any fights in the first few minutes unless you know you're going to win them. A lot of it is just kind of like building up momentum and getting to a point where like you can't die. So when you have to deal with basically an ADC in your lane instead, right? You don't do enough damage necessarily to burst them out in the first few minutes of the game, but they do. That's exactly what their job is to burst you and take you down. So you can't really CS because they keep you at range. You can't get in their face and engage. It sucks, right? You basically just don't get to play League of Legends for like 15 minutes. And if you do really well, you'll be like 0-1-0 at the 15-minute mark, and you'll have to just hope the rest of your team did well, and then you can kind of come out of that game with some success. But I mean, yeah, a successful lane against a range matchup typically doesn't look like you went like 7-0 and 4. It's basically like you just don't die and you might be okay, but it's not a lot of other counterplay for you. You kind of just have to let them do what they're going to do and work with your team to kind of outmaneuver.
Yeah, I mean, what you said when you said 15 minutes, I mean that's huge because you do really have to survive as a melee bruiser top laner into something like a Vayne. Kennen is another one that's a ranged top lane matchup that could be really difficult to deal
Kennen.
with. But if you can survive the lane phase, typically what happens is if someone's taking a ranged top laner as part of their like team comp, that means that they're having to transition or trying to move some of those elements that the top laner would typically provide to a comp into jungle or into support. And sometimes, especially in like solo queue, that doesn't happen. So, top lane is usually like hard engage or a tank or a big split pusher or something like that. Well, if they're taking something like Quinn, well, Quinn's a very different playstyle. Quinn's not hard engaged. Quinn is not a tank. So hopefully the enemy team did not, kind of check those boxes with the rest of their comp. And maybe you can be more useful with your pick past that 15-minute mark. You're playing something like a Scion. You just absorb the pressure, become useful, and then, you're a much more vital component to your team comp than the Quinn would ever be. Quinn has to roam, and Quinn's this roaming assassin. But if you've got a lot of vision up, and you don't allow the Quinn to split push, and you don't allow the Quinn to come in and gank and things of that nature, you just survive the lane and then be more useful later on. And unfortunately, you have to play weak side. It's awful.
Yeah, it's not fun. And yeah, basically you just get to the team fight stage and then you hope that the rest of your team can do their job and allow you to do yours. Your one-on-one matchup, it's not fun.
All right, moving on. We have Ched, which, if memory serves me correctly, this is the legendary Pike in some of our CR games. So
Yeah,
Ched
Chad.
submitted an entry here from Pennsylvania. The champion he absolutely hates playing against is Akali. And I'll give you this one. Akali, it kind of goes along those lines of the champions with stealth and invisibility. Akali's definitely one that's a pain to deal with.
Yeah, it's funny. You wouldn't think someone like Chad would have trouble playing against any champion, right? Because you've seen him on the Rift, really just kind of executing, doing his thing, having a really easy time playing the game. Well, I mean, even the folks at the highest levels still have champions they dislike, right? Like, I don't like this guy because he's difficult to deal with, whatever, for whatever reason. And yeah, I love that we got a submission from you, Ched. So thank you for that. Akali, right, is she's been reworked a couple of times, but she's always kind of been based around that shroud, that stealth shroud that she has, and the outplay and maneuverability in her kit, right? So kind of similar to some other mid laners like Ari. She's going to dash in and out of the fight. She's going to basically try to confuse you with her positioning and try to surprise you with some burst damage. So what Akali's typically like to do is weave in and out, and they're going to throw a few spells in there with their I believe her Q is the one that goes out in a little cone. That's her main source of damage other than the R. So a lot of what she's trying to do is hit you with that to mark you, come back in, and then potentially get you on the double ult because she gets to recast that more than once. So it's really difficult to play against if you don't know, like, okay, Akali gets to dash at me twice. Oh, now I'm marked. She's going to be able to close the distance no matter what I do. No point in flashing. There's a lot of little minor details to Akali that if you don't realize, you're going to probably get outplayed. So, yeah, Akali's got that skill ceiling that's through the roof, right? Just like Katarina and some of these other champions that allow you to express, if you're a really great player and you have mastery over the game. Akali's one of those champions that lets you show just how masterful you are when it comes to League of Legends. So yeah, very frustrating to deal with.
Yeah, and she's one of part of her kit that she gets a lot of damage from too is her passive, where once she hits you with an ability, she wants to leave out of range of you. She has to leave melee range, and then it activates where she starts to spin
Hmm.
Her weapon, is it a kunai? I don't know what the y'all have to correct me in
We'll
chat
go
what
with
the
kunai.
yeah, sure, whatever. um, so she'll hit you with an ability, and then she has to she gets an indicator. If you've ever played Akali, she gets an indicator around her where she has to leave far enough away from you in order to activate her passive, and that's when she go back in and do another point of damage. So that's why her E is really crucial to her, because usually when she hits her E, it auto resets her passive because it boosts her away from you, and then she E's back in. Um, Galio is a great counter to Akali, because once Akali goes into her shroud, which used to be giga broken back in the day, used to be able to dodge towers, and I think the fountain laser, even to like when on
Yeah,
first release, like completely stupid stuff that they left in the game. But
yeah.
now the shroud isn't as bad, but Galio's taunt can take up just about the whole shroud. So when she goes
Hmm.
into shroud, you activate your taunt and then stay in the middle of it, and you're likely going to get her, and holding her close to you so you can rain some of that damage in. She doesn't get the resets on her passive, or at least that passive damage. So she's not able to use her whole kit. And kind of like Samira too, saving that hard CC for when Akali goes in. When you see her go into your team, you gotta lock her down and burst that damage.
Yeah, Galio's a great call out. He's a favorite of mine. And with Galio and Akali specifically, right? You get the taunt, you get the knock up. You can also, right, if you got a buddy with you, you get another knock up with your R. So really, his kit is designed to deal with assassins, right? Especially someone like Akali. And yeah, she's tough, man. She's a manaless champion, which is another
Mm-hmm.
one of those things I really hate, right? So she's always going to be an issue. You don't. She's doesn't even have mana concerns. So,
Right.
yeah, I like the Galio call out though. That's good.
So next we have Cartera out of Arkansas. Our resident Cartera's played Cho'Gath in Coach Rivals, and she had the GoldenEye Nasus, the 007 Nasus, coming in. She says the champion she hates playing against is Aurelia, and the question is, how can I hit her when she dashes so much?
Yeah, Aurelia. Aurelia is really similar to Yasuo in the fact that they can use minions to their advantage. For repositioning, for map movement, whatnot. So I know the way Yasuo's works, and I'm pretty sure Aurelia's is the same, where you can't dash to the same minion more than once during the duration, right? There's like a reset timer.
Yeah, she has to, like, if she hits anything she hits with an ability puts a passive marker on it,
Hmm.
and if she procs that, that gives her a reset on her Q. But also, if she kills the unit, it resets her Q as well. So if it's marked or it dies to her Q, it refreshes that cooldown.
Right. Okay. Okay. So it's kind of similar to Yasuo's thing, but almost in
Yeah,
reverse. Because yeah, he hits him first, and then you can't hit him again. Okay.
right.
Okay. So yeah. So basically, what you want to do with Aurelia, right? You kind of have to play the minion wave game,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you're a top laner, so you're kind of used to playing the minion wave game. But with Aurelia, she can do things that other champions can't, right? Like the dash thing that we're talking about. If you know that there's a minion wave coming, and oh, this is a good tip, minion waves. Okay, how do you know if there's a minion wave coming? Look at your side of the map, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know where their minions are, but you kind of do, right? Because minions are synchronized. So if you look at your side of the map and you see your minions are coming from the inhibitor turret, they're in between the inhibitor turret and the tier 2 turret. Well, the enemy team's minions are in the exact same spot,
Yep.
right? So you can kind of track it and know, like, oh, my minions are almost here. Their minions are also almost here. Probably not a good time to engage on Aurelia because she's going to get a bunch of resets and do some crazy stuff and make me look silly. So a lot of the key with Aurelia is playing your minion waves really well and making sure to not engage when she's at a point where she can get those resets and dive on top of you and dive out, dive on top of you and dive out. Don't fall for it, right? Because Aurelia is really good at faking you, like, oh no, I'm not gonna attack you, and now I'm on top of you.
Mm-hmm.
So playing the minion wave game, making sure to play under your tower if possible. Sometimes even the tower isn't safe, but whittling down the minions before a huge, two cannon minion wave crashes into your tower and you die. That's the key, right? Don't fight her. Wait for someone else to come help, or just kind of play it passively, which I hate. I hate champions that you kind of have to just
Right.
walk away from.
You
But
tank
it
your
is what it
laning
is.
phase just to survive.
Yeah, you're like, all right, see you in 15 minutes, buddy.
Yeah, so Aurelia is tough. They've actually released a post recently from the developers. We're trying to give some clarity. They're gonna do a little mini, not a mini rework. It's more of a make some adjustments to Aurelia for clarity purposes because her passive. Every time she hits an enemy with one of her abilities, it gives her stacking attack speed, and once it's at max stack, she does bonus on hit damage. That's where a lot of Aurelia's damage is. So if you're standing in your minion wave and you have a lot of low health minions, she's going to start spamming that Q. So she'll dash and execute all of those low health minions. And once she does that 5 times, I think it's 5, she's at her max stacks. Well, as an enemy laner currently in League of Legends, you cannot see how many stacks she has. So she may be sitting at 2 stacks, but you don't know. And then all of a sudden, she's at 5 stacks because she just executed 3 minions near you, and now she's doing that bonus on hit damage, and you can't do anything about it. So I will say, coming soon, they are patching that to put a little indicator on Aurelia so that you can see how many passive stacks she has, similar to Annie. When Annie has her stun ready, like you can see it. Or when she's about to have her stun ready, you can see it. So that's going to be changed. To your point, Cartero, it's how can I hit her when she dashes so much? That's where you bring in champions that have point click stuns and not necessarily like skill shot snares. So playing Morgana into Aurelia can be brutal. You play Cho'Gath. Playing Cho'Gath into Aurelia can be brutal because you're putting your rupture on the ground where she can just dash out of it. So I'm thinking things like Kennen, where you can stun with enough auto attacks and your W, right? You can stun with your electrocute kind of procs. Also, Rise would be really cool. Rise has a point click snare. Anything with those point click snares are really good. And I think your Nasus could potentially be really good into an Aurelia. Once the Aurelia starts dashing around, you wither her and she's she can't move. It's the slow is absolutely ridiculous. So based on like your champion pool, I would say the Nasus would be better than the Cho'Gath into the Aurelia.
Yeah, Nasus was going to be my recommendation, specifically if you just hold your Wither spell until you know she's trying to engage on you. You could basically just walk away at that point. Maybe you drop your AOE right below, so that way if she wants to fight you, she has to do it on your terms, on your land, right? Essentially, and yeah, like that's pretty much your best bet. Good question though. That's really good.
Next is Aaron, or Aiden, as people will know him from Coach Rivals. And from Colorado, says that Hecarim is the champion he absolutely hates playing against. And he says he's so fast that he can dive you under tower, kill you, and only tank one tower shot the entire time. Also calling his position as practically useless. You just saw him top. Okay, let's try and make a play bot, and he's here. So like all the A's in there. Yeah, Hecarim is one of those where were you considering putting Hecarim on your list?
Actually, yeah, Hecarim was like the honorable mention of my list. I totally agree and can relate to what you're saying, Aiden. Aaron, whatever. Both are correct. Yeah,
Correct.
basically, right. Hecarim is just, especially when he's in meta, right? Like he gets so much speed. Speed buff champions in general can be really oppressive. Like Ramus kind of has the same vibe sometimes, where he's just like everywhere. But Hecarim, it feels very much like, I mean, he's a horse, right? So he's
Of
gonna
course.
he's gonna be
Of course,
fast,
of
right?
course.
Of course, he's a horse, so he's gonna be fast. But the way that he can kind of position and like aggressively get in your face and then knock you back, I mean, it just seems like it does seem like a really oppressive kit that he has. Oh man, I'm pixelated. Let me fix that. So I totally agree. I see what you're saying. Hecarim, like I said, he basically was the fourth member of my list, and yeah, it's just because he's a lot of trouble because he's everywhere, and no matter who you pick, you're typically slower on the rotations. So if you're playing jungle, he's either farming your jungle before you can get there, or he shows up to a lane that you were going to go gank and now everybody's dead. It's really oppressive and not fun to play against for sure.
Yeah, and Hecarim kind of falls into that category of champions that can be really oppressive based on movement speed, because any player that has a decent macro sense can really
Yeah.
play the map against you. You know, like Aiden saying is, he's top side. He's clearing his his red side top buff there, but then all of a sudden he shows up at bot lane because he knows there could potentially be a play showing up there. So anybody on like these Kanes, the Shakos, the Hecarim, something with like crazy mobility spells and able to get around the map very quickly, can be particularly dominant. One of the things with Hecarim is he does his E, if I remember correctly, is more powerful based on how quickly he's moving.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like champions in Hecarim like Zilean. I really love playing Zilean not only with a Hecarim as a support, because then you speed him up and he's zooming everywhere. It's a super fast pony. He's a Mustang.
It's a Mustang.
But also Zilean into Hecarim I really like. I like Lulu into Hecarim because you can polymorph him and he does nothing.
Mm-hmm.
A Fear into Hecarim is really good. So like Fiddlesticks, because it's really funny too, because it's like fearing a Yi. When he's moving really quickly and he's got the zoomies and you fear them, he runs away even faster. So it's awesome. So just little things like that. Any champion that would slow him is really good. Even looking at something where you could possibly counteract it, like Shirley's Battle Song could even be an item that we would build maybe against the Hecarim to, okay, he's zooming into us, okay, we're going to zoom away as well. And to kind of disengage and let his E go off cooldown, because then that reduces one aspect of his engage, because he does tend to ult in and then E you backwards. So it's kind of like the Hecarim sec, kind of like the insec. It's a hex sec. He's gonna fear you and then E you back. That's the only thing I can say. Yeah, Hecarim can be really dominant, and just because of the movement.
Yeah.
So yeah, good call out there for sure.
Save your flashes for the Hecarim gigs.
Yeah, no doubt. Next, we have another legendary Coach Rivals coach. We have Cannon Teach with a submission
Legend.
coming from Colorado. What champion do you absolutely hate playing against and why? And I like the little explanation here. He hates playing against Mordekaiser, and he says he didn't hate him until this season of Coach Rivals.
That's right. Bringing it to you, man. We did notice there was a trend with the Mordekaisers. It was 100% win rate for a couple of weeks there. Yeah, Mordekaiser, man, he can be difficult, and we've talked a little bit about Mord, right? He's a unique champion. Since his rework, since he's been able to take you to the Death Realm and do some cool stuff where he can kind of 1v1 you, and right, like his role in most team fights is pretty locked in. So Mordekaiser during the laning phase, he wants to do single target damage to you with his Q, because he gets a burst of damage whenever it hits a single target rather than when it hits a group. So he wants to kind of get that pull in, hit you with the Q while you're not expecting it, right? So it's like a burst of damage, and then you're too far away from your tower to walk back, and he just kind of auto you until he gets another Q available. So a lot of the time, what you need to do is avoid the pull or anticipate the bonk, right? The Q, because if he bonks you and there's no minions around, it's going to hurt a lot. I believe the bonus is a 50% damage bonus in general, right? So he's just going to do 50% more damage to you if it's a single target. So watch out for that. In team fights, he wants to walk in and ult typically the ADC, typically the champion that's going to do the most damage in the team fight, because that allows the rest of his team to clean up the enemy team without their damage source. So he's going to show up, ult, and then figure things out. He typically wins the matchup in the Death Realm because you're scrambling and running around and trying to get away from him, and then he kills you, or it ends and you walk away at very low health. So it's really tough. You can outplay a lot of his kit, right? The ultimate is a big part of it. You can outplay it with a Quicksilver Sash, which we've talked about. It's 1,300 gold. You pick one up. As soon as he ults you, you hit that, 1, 2, 3, whatever you've got it locked to, and you're out of the ult. You're out. Now, he does still retain some of the buffs he gets from casting the ult, So you're still probably not going to want to engage him, but it at least gets you out and you can get back with your team to continue the team fight and hopefully turn it in your favor. Um, if you're a top laner, right, and you want to deal with Mordekaiser, play Gangplank. He's not exactly the most meta champion. He's a little difficult to master. But Gangplank also has a Quicksilver Sash built into his kit. He gets to cleanse any ability like Mordekaiser's ultimate with a single ability that he has. So kind of similar to a Morgana Black Shield, but it's used after you get ulted. You press the button rather than before. Yeah, you basically just negate that whole engage tool. So Gangplank, very situational. I'm not going to recommend anybody just start picking up Gangplank. He's not exactly the most powerful champion in the game. He could probably use a buff, but he's a great counter to someone like a Mordekaiser, like a very hard counter, because you essentially Mordekaiser is just not going to ult you for the whole game because he knows there's no point. So yeah, you have a lot more fun playing League of Legends when you play Gangplank into Mord.
Yeah, Gangplank wins with the power of vitamin C in those matches.
The oranges, yes.
There's a really cool thing too with if you're playing a champion with a spell shield like Nocturne or Sivir, there is a cast time on the Mordekaiser ult that I've discovered too. So if you're really fast, you can detect that he's casting the ult to activate the spell shield and block it. But yeah, other than the QSS tax, and buying that in lane, as you said, dodging his E. That's his big trade pattern. Is he'll E you in, and then he'll get the isolated Q damage, or start popping his W shred, things like that. Yeah, great tips for sure. All right, so next we have from Patty, Queen Oblivious. Her name, I did not assign her that, by the way. Yeah. Queen Oblivious from Louisiana, the champion she absolutely hates playing against. So this is going to kind of tie back into range tops. She hates playing against Teemo. She says he kills me repeatedly and I have no idea how to stop it. Yeah, Teemo is kind of going back to those range top laners. You almost, if you're playing a melee top, you pretty much have to, or an auto attack based champion, you pretty much have to tank your lane into him, because you're not going to be able to do much damage to him unless you can bait out his blind and then maybe re-engage. But it kind of goes back to, and Coop is going to hate me for saying this, Teemo I think is just, I think it's a troll pick. I think that he doesn't bring much to a team because his ultimate is very conditional. Like when you engage in a big team fight and you force the issue into a team with a Teemo, that Teemo is almost like playing with 3 abilities instead of 4. Like he has to play in his minefield of shrooms in order to be the most effective. So you really see Teemos being particularly effective as split pushers. So in those situations, you want to take your group of other 5 people and hard collapse on the rest of the enemy team. So yeah, you can let Teemo split push all he wants, but you're going to barrel down the mid lane as 5 after you wipe out the rest of his team, as long as you have some really like hard engage elements as part of your team comp.
Yeah, you said Teemo gets taken down to 3 skills. Really, it's like 2, because one of his abilities is a 10% speed buff, which is like, what's even the point of that? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, when we have so much mobility and movement in the game and so many other things that like allow you to kind of, I mean, heck, the Scuttle Crab speed buff is about equivalent to that 10% speed buff. So I really think Teemo could use a buff big time. I remember back in the day, right? Season 1, season 2, Teemo was actually a terror because his blind mechanic, and there weren't enough champions that existed to kind of deal with his kit. Well, now Teemo's kind of an afterthought, unfortunately, because he's a cool character, right? Like the whole scout idea, he can kind of sit, be invisible, and surprise you. Yeah, he's definitely. Oh yeah, good tip. The sweeper lens really changed the game, negated a lot of Teemo's viability. Basically, Teemo is at his best when, like you said, like split pushing, leaving traps so that the enemies who are coming walk over a bunch of shrooms and get slowed and lose a lot of health on the way, and he escapes anyway. Or when setting up kind of a choke point, right? If your team is going for Baron and Teemo has done the groundwork and laid 30 mushrooms around the Baron pit, you're probably going to win that Baron fight because they have to walk through all this debris and they got to get through this damage and then still come out to the other side of it with enough health to challenge you for a Baron. And they're coming because they've hit all these shrooms. So Teemo's strength is kind of like sitting in a spot and letting you come to him.
Mm-hmm.
The best way to beat him, right, is to stay in his face. Don't allow him, like in a team fight, don't allow him to escape. Don't lose sight of where he is. Pick him off. Don't worry about the blind. If you're blinded, let somebody else do the work. Kind of back out, get back in as soon as it wears off, and then you shouldn't have too much trouble with him.
Very cool. Moving on, we're going to try to wrap these up. We've got two that are the same, so that'll be. But this is from Coach Mustang in California. She says, any champion with invisibility or stealth in their kits, but especially champions like Twitch, Vayne, Pyke, Rengar. I'm sure Shaco would be in that list. Evelynn. As an Enchanter support main, it's just incredibly rude when I'm trying to lay down some vision and I get a quick trip back to the fountain with a gray screen from some sneaky person. And then she throws this little... We all know that only terrible people play these champions.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know you can't play fair, so you got to play sneaky. No, I don't know, but yeah, that's funny. I think we can all relate, right, to the feeling of how did I die? Where were they? Why did no one tell me this was going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
I could have prepared better. No, that's kind of the whole kit, right? Stealth champions, that's what they do, right? They surprise you. So you have to think a few steps ahead. If I were Rengar, where would I be? What lane would I be trying to gank, right? Or if I were, Twitch and I'm the ADC, I'm against the Twitch ADC. Where do I think the Twitch is going as soon as he turns invisible?
Mm-hmm.
Am I low health? He's probably coming to me. Am I full health? He's probably going, mid lane. If because you also have to realize they have a goal in mind. Obviously, they're trying to get a kill, but they can't just sit invisible forever, right? So they're going to lose CS. They're going to lose, map pressure. They might lose some objectives. So what you have to do is you kind of need to pressure a champion who's just gone invisible, or you need to, if you kind of have a read on where they are, or you need to back away and play safe until the invisibility wears off, or they're forced to start auto attacking minions. If you're being ganked by an Evelynn or a Rengar, something that's a lot harder to do, it's all about warding at that point, making sure you got your pink ward set up, because warding is a team sport and it's not all on the support's shoulders to do that. You can only place one pink ward per player, and when you're in a game against the Viz champs, you're going to need 5. So work with your team to get some more pinks placed down.
Yeah, for sure. I like the idea that if you don't see that the champion that has invisibility in his or her kit, if you don't see that champion, he or she's likely right there. Like you have to assume that they're there. And to your point with warding, I love blue trinkets for champions like that. So I as an ADC, I always get blue trinket whenever I hit level 9, but I would even encourage my mid laner to grab blue trinket. And the reason why is because you can deep ward into the enemy jungle, and I would put it on all of their, or put it on their buff camps, or put it in a brush where you can at least see multiple camps that jungler could potentially be at. So if you can see that champion from a distance before they activate their stealth, it doesn't help so much with Evelynn unless she actively is trying to clear the camp. But for something like a Twitch or a Pyke, throwing that trinket ward further up the lane in a brush where they're not going to be able to see it, or put it in their jungler where they could be in their jungle where they could potentially be coming from, you see them way ahead of time, and then you make the call. Okay, we need to back off here. So I think blue trinkets are a hard counter to. They're difficult to work with because it takes communication, but I think blue trinket is a huge potential counter, or at least an answer to those champions like that.
Good tip. Yeah, that's good. I didn't think of that.
All right, so our next two come from, they're actually the same answer, but we're going to read both of them. So Fixing Mantella out of Texas and Schmitty J from Colorado both said Tristana. And so Fixing Mantella says, laying against the Tristana is always tricky for me. The amount of power she gets from her E makes it hard for me to judge when I can or can't fight. She's strong early, but she can also be a hyper carry late game. which is true. And then Schmitty J says, I'm a Leona main, and she's the only champ I regularly see that is extremely difficult to lock down. And can she so easily chase and punish? If I see Trist on the enemy team, I'm hoping she goes mid lane to delete Rick the Cleaner instead of me. The player has to know what they're doing, though. With a bad pilot, Trist is pretty squishy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, Tristana relies really heavily, like most ADCs do, on positioning during team fights and making sure to outrange you, right? And Tristana passively gains range throughout the game.
Mm-hmm.
So early levels, right? Level 1, 2, whatever, all the way to 6. She's not as difficult to engage on as she is when she gets to like 15, 16, 17, because by that point her range is so much greater that you're going to take at least 2 or 3 more autos before you get in range of her as a melee champion, compared to earlier in the game. So as a good Tristana starts building attack speed, I don't know which runes typically Tristana wants to build, but I'm assuming probably press the attack.
Well, she's been running a lot of Hail of Blades recently,
Hail of Blades,
because it
right,
allows her to proc full damage on her E.
right, and you can eat towers like that too,
Yeah.
because you can pop one of the one of the bombs on the tower, and then you get 5 autos in the span of, a couple of seconds, and that thing blows up, and that's a quarter of the health of the tower gone. Once you get past the turret plate point of the game. So yeah, she can be really oppressive because she can take towers, she can do a lot of single target damage. She's got the ability to get in or out of a fight with her jump. So repositioning, and she's also got a knockback on her ult, right, which is a pretty loaded kit. So in general, if you're playing against a Tristana, bait out her jump,
Mm-hmm.
right, either away or in, and then from that point she doesn't have a very good escape tool. So if you have a trap set up, boom, that's time to go in. If you don't have a trap set up, it's time to get out of there, because she just basically showed her hand and said, I got 2 aces up my sleeve. You're about to go down. You got to get out of there. So that's really the only way to deal with Tristana when she does jump in, because typically she's going to be confident enough to take you out.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough, right? But if you just play the jump well enough, or again, Thresh, right? We talked about Thresh with Nocturne hooking him out of the air. Thresh's Flay can also cancel Tristana's jump.
Yep.
So if you've got a Thresh on your team or something, that's a great counter to a Tristana and what she wants to do in team fights. She's going to have to play him a little differently, and it's probably going to affect her damage output.
Yeah, like yeah. One of my tips was going to be that her jump is interruptible. So
yeah.
Whenever you throw CC onto Tristana, you need to, if you have multiple forms of CCs, like Thresh has the hook and the flay, you'll want to hook in and then hold the flay for when she goes to jump, and you can actually pull her out of it. And a Janna Q can do the same thing. So those are really cool things for, as far as like for Schmitty J. I'm a Leona main, because the bad thing with the Leona main is Trist can buffer that. So even if you go to stun her, the jump can still go through. You could E her with the Zenith Blade, but I think it's going to take you to her new location still. So yeah, Leona definitely doesn't have the ability, and if I remember correctly, to interrupt those. But playing as an ADC main, back to like what Fixie Mantella was saying, Tristana can't freeze a wave. The only way she can freeze a wave, really, is if she never levels up her E. Well, she always wants to level up her E, because she just, that's a majority of her damage. But once she does that, she has the passive explosion damage when a minion dies. So Tristana is like perma pushing into, so it really does expose her a lot to ganks. So, like, when I'm playing into a Tristana, I don't actively try to 2v2 the Tristana. I just let her push, because she's going to naturally push. That's what her kit does. She cannot freeze against you. So you can freeze on her, because she's always going to be pushing into you. It's going to make her try to overextend to be able to break that freeze, opening herself up to jungle ganks, would be my opinion.
That's a great tip. Yeah, because Tristana, if you're not aware, right, like when she kills a minion, the minion explodes and does damage to other minions around it. So, like to Justin's point, there's no way that she can freeze a wave because every time she goes to collect CS, it does damage to a bunch of other minions, and slowly your wave will naturally get pushed because because the minion damage.
And our last one is from one of our casters. All right, so Pathfinder getting in on some of the Rift Happens action. He's out of Texas. He says, but really in a state of copium. The champion he absolutely hates playing against is Lulu because she is the most elo inflated, low skill, high reward support that's turbo broken. Sorry, Coach Mustang. Look, so there was a Reddit post not too long ago about a Lulu one trick in Korea getting like challenger or something, and some of the pro players like looked at the match history and had some things to say. Like all they looked at how the Lulu plays. All the Lulu was doing was maxing E and letting the ADC kind of carry and stuff. So there's a lot of argument there for that as far as like how much skill is involved in Lulu gameplay. But I would argue that Lulu, Lulu can be very terrorizing. The polymorph is huge. The wild growth completely shuts down assassins and really shuts down champions like Kaisa that want to dive in with the killer instinct, and you either wild growth your ADC to prevent them from dying, or you polymorph the Kaisa, and so she dashes in and then she's nothing. So Lulu is, depending on your play style, like if you like to play divers and assassins, she could just be an absolute menace to play against.
Yeah, I love that he says like, no skill required or whatever. I'm like, okay, I get it, right? Lulu's easy to pilot, but still there are really I've seen even just in our coach rivals games, right? Like those like breakneck moments where, oh man, I polymorphed you before you get your ult off, and I ulted this guy to save him from the burst damage. And I mean, really, there's absolutely outplay mechanics built into Lulu's kit, right? Like you just have to pilot her well enough, just like any other champion. But I think Lulu's a cool champion for League of Legends in general because she's got that kind of like let me be carried style of play, right? And that's fine, right? We've been talking about that too. You get into a game of League of Legends and you think, oh man, the only way I can win this is if I take on every single player in this game and 1v9, right? I'm going to win through just dominant play. Well, that's not the only way to win League of Legends. And you can win a game simply by just kind of letting your team do their job while you do yours. And yeah, Lulu's role is she's an enchanter. She wants to kind of like build you up and buff you and let you do crazy, cool, mad life things.
Yeah, and be sure to have your team abuse some of those new items that are out, like Serpent's Fang that cuts down on the shields and things of that nature. So I think that item is really underutilized. I don't know enough data. I don't have enough data on it to say if it's really worth if it's gold efficient or not, but could be worth it looking into it. All right, so we're about an hour into this, and we'll try to only do a 2-hour podcast. But once we get going, we start talking. So just real quick, I want to look at the patch 11.14 preview. We're not going to go into everything, but for those of you that don't stay up to date on what could be coming down the pipe for the next update to League of Legends, Dead Man's Plate is getting a buff into its armor. Champions that are on the nerf list, we're just going to read through these. Akali, Karma, Malzahar, Nocturne, hallelujah, Shaco, some of you be interested in that. Xin Zhao and Ziggs are on the nerf list. Now, all those nerfs could be some like Karma's AD is dropping, so it doesn't really impact her that much. Which she that's like her base AD, so her auto attacks. But so it could hurt her last hitting minions if she's in a solo lane. Malzahar's HP is being adjusted. Q AP ratio is being adjusted. Nocturne's passive is less effective on minions now, so they're trying to push Nocturne possibly more towards jungle as opposed to being a dominant solo laner. Just little things like that, so make sure you check those patch notes out. If you ever want to see these, they do post those on Twitter, but also at surrenderat20.net is the website I typically go to. Champion buffs coming down the pipe. Darius, Garen, Graves. Haven't seen much Graves. Uh,
Yes.
Alawi, Coach Magros may be interested in that. So she's getting a
Ooh,
10% a ten movement speed buff.
that's big.
So yeah, potentially.
People talk. Okay, look, I'm gonna get on a soapbox real
Oh,
quick.
here we go.
People talk about movement speed nerfs, right? Like Kassadin, Karthus, they had like a movement speed nerf a few patches ago of like
Mm.
five, like literally five movement speed was the nerf. Everybody on Reddit, oh man, that's not a real nerf. That's not. This isn't going to affect them. It actually had a massive impact on their win rates.
Hmm.
And small buffs or nerfs, five movement speed, 10 is actually pretty big. Uh, can make a huge difference. It cuts down the time it takes you to get back to lane. You can join fights
Hmm.
faster, right? Like all of these things get, and
Dodging
then
skill
for
shots.
yeah, right. Dodging skill shots for junglers, it means faster clear times, right? More ganks. Like 10 movement speed seems like nothing, but that's a huge buff for Alawi. Honestly, like that's really big. I didn't expect to see that. Sorry for the
No, you're
soapbox
good.
moment.
No. So hopefully Michael will bust that out.
Yeah,
Ivern Rek'Sai, that's for Eric. Seraphine is getting a buff, so Team Coach Diff may be interested in that. And then
yeah.
Tarek is getting a buff as well. And then on the champion adjustment list, we have Dr. Mundo, Aurelia, Lilia, and Tom Kench. Those are long adjustments, so you have to read those on your own. So if you play any of those champions or have an interest in that, be sure to check those out. Before we get into a Coach Rivals update and how the season is going so far, I do want to remind everybody that you have about 9 days left to apply for the Gloop Esports Enablement Grant. If you're unfamiliar with Gloop, Gloop is a browser-based esports training platform. It gives you measurable data for your student athletes, dealing with things like reaction time, memorization, mouse accuracy, things of that nature. Really, really cool platform. But they have an esports enablement grant that is only eligible. There's only available for academic esports teams to apply. So there is a $5,000 grant and a $2,500 grant, free to apply. The deadline is July 15th. Find more information about that grant over at gloop.com/grant. Okay, here we go, Ronnie. We're getting into this some
Mm,
good stuff here. So this past week, our week 5 match, our featured match was between Coach Diff and JGE. But this is what the standings kind of looked like before we went into that. Coach Diff sitting at the top of the standings, 3-1, sole possession of first place. Team Tragedy in second at 3-0. Deathcat for Cutie in third at 2-2. Hotline Ping and JGE tied in fourth at 2-1. The team on the right in sixth at 1-2, and then Immortals and Spawn of Baron tied at seventh at 0-3. So our featured week 5 match did feature this Coach Diff team that just recently came off of that loss. They were undefeated going into the match with Deathcat for Cutie, lost to Deathcat for Cutie, and then JGE were also undefeated coming into last week, 2-0, and they lost versus Team Tragedy. So both of these teams were coming off of losses. Both of these teams were previously undefeated before this week 5 match. And it would definitely set the stage for some great storylines and a banger of a match for sure.
yeah, I'm just giggling to myself because like every time I look at the Just Good Enough team logo, the little subtext underneath, that'll do, team. That'll do. Like that cracks me up every time, man. Like, is that Coop that does this? The team logos? Shout out to Coop if that's you, bro, because these team logos every year they always get me. This one's no different. Okay, so the match, right? Yeah, I was really excited about this one. Um, these two teams have shown that they're two of the top contenders. 3-4 weeks into this season, and yeah, I mean, this was one of those matches where you've got, like they say, like an unstoppable force meets an immovable object,
Mm-hmm.
essentially, right? And who's gonna come out on top? So I think Coach Diff has kind of been running the table. Apart from their Death Cat match from last week, they've been kind of running the table on Coach Rivals so far this season. Well, Just Good Enough, they had a little bit of a hiccup because of a reschedule, and then when they got back on track, they did end up losing that game. So yeah, like you said, only one team. I mean, only one loss per team here. Really strong seasons from both of these guys. So yeah, definitely a lot of storylines and a lot of anticipation for this match because, I mean, it's really not obvious who's going to come out on top, right? Most matches you don't really, you can kind of coin flip or guess and say, oh, I think maybe this team or that team. Really, it was going to be tough to predict who was going to come out on top of this one with any kind of accuracy, just because of how well they both played.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into looking at, and like you said, I think Coach Diff has they've done a really good job of establishing themselves as like that team to beat. You know, because
Yeah.
when we watch them play every single week, we do see how strong they are, how well they're able to work with some flex picks, and how dominant they can be in some of their lanes. And then JGE was also one of those where they didn't have the 3-0 record, they had the 2-0 record, but it was still one of those like this is still a really good team. So yeah, like you said, despite the hiccup that each team had, they were still coming into this match of these are two of our teams that have shown that they are top caliber. So I want to look at, before we get into like the results of the match, I do want to look at what these teams have previously done in Coach Rivals. So up until this point, this is what the champ pools look like, or at least the comps look like for Coach Diff moving into this week 5 match. So looking at this, we see some commonality from week to week. And then there are some little things that show maybe why potentially they lost versus Death Cat for Cutie. What sort of things stand out to you in these Coach Diff team comps?
Well, I mean, first thing is I see a lot of Varys, Doctor
Yeah.
Strange Glove. He's been, yeah, just every single game. There's, ADC bans are a dime a dozen. You can ban out, 4 or 5 champions, and there's always going to be another one that's kind of viable. And Varys has been that one for a lot of teams this season because, the Caitlyn pick's been kind of contested for certain teams. The other ADCs just outright get banned out, and then Varys has been kind of a favorite for a couple teams, and Coach Diff is no different. So definitely, I feel like Varys is one of their not necessarily win conditions, but it's definitely a point of emphasis for these guys. It's gonna they're gonna feel more comfortable. And the other thing I notice that I'll call out is really both the mid lane and jungle have some pretty incredible champion pools because they haven't repeated a champion through 4 weeks. Right. So it's a little different flavor from those two guys every single week. I mean, Robbie's only one game behind them. He's played 3 different champions out of 4 matches. So it's not like they're locked into one particular team composition. They're able to be really fluid with what they need from their jungler versus their mid laner versus their top, and that way bot lane can kind of stay consistent week to week and just kind of do what they do. And I think that's a big reason that they've been so successful.
Yeah, for sure. I think the ability to, between Hernandez Teaches and a Smooth Criminal, to have those flexes with the set, I think set's been a really big part of their success. One of the reasons why set had 100% win rate in Coach Rivals is because of Coach Diff. I mean, they won with set on 3 of their 4 matches that they had played. They didn't play set into Death Cat for Cutie. I believe set got banned, but one of the cool things, and talking with some of the teams after we had one of our previous episodes with Immortals, Coach Mustang, through in the Discord, because I was critical of why did you not ban the set. Well, they were looking at previous pick patterns for Coach Diff, and all up until they had that match with Immortals, they had been first picking Varys. So Immortals were actually looking to steal the set, as in their picks. So Coach Div had first pick, and instead of picking the Varys first pick, they threw a curveball and picked the set. So this team has done a really good job of really flexing in champ select. As you mentioned, completely broad champ pool. You're having the flexes, but with the set going top, the set going mid. We also have the Viego going top, the Viego going jungle. I mean, who do you ban out on this team, really? Do you value the set? Okay, we'll ban the set. Well, but then you have that you have other champions that these players can play. So it does make it tough to ban out Coach Diff from the stance of we want to take out some of their high priority champions.
Yeah, right. You only get 5 bans, so we always joke, oh, he'll never get to play that champ again. Well,
Yeah, I
we'll
think
see.
too. One of the things that I didn't like when Coach Diff lost versus Deathcat for Cutie is I want to see a Smooth Criminal on more playmaking champs. You know, he was on the RE week 1 and had that crazy first blood on Saikazi's Lee Sin that, you know, had the Lee syndrome going in their tower and had had the first blood of Coach Rivals season 2. It was an awesome first blood. And then he breaks out the Nocturne and he's all over the map. Then he breaks out the set and, you know, he's RKOing the front line onto the back line. But then in Deathcat for Cutie, he goes Anivia. You know, and I think that with the way that Coach Diff is, knowing that Dr. Strangeglove and Major Queso Destroyer like to be playing these large utility bot lanes, not crazy damage bot lanes. They're not playing kill lanes. They're playing utility every single week. They're playing Varus for utility with the Chains of Corruption. They have the Seraphine that can ult through and taunt everybody. The Nautilus with a lot of CC. The Morgana with lockdown. That's their bread and butter for the bot lane. So I want to see a Smooth Criminal on more playmakers. And I think having a Smooth Criminal on the Anivia really limited the possibilities that Coach Diff had in a Deathcat for Cutie, and ultimately probably could have cost them that matchup.
Yeah. Oh man, really great point. You know, I didn't even think about that. Like Anivia is right. She's kind of a standard mid laner where she's not got as much mobility as maybe some other champs he's been playing. And yeah, like it showed, right? Deathcat for Cutie had a lot more ease in the match at like finding leads, even just through mid lane. You know, the Anivia play was fine, right? There's nothing wrong with it, but it's hard to take Anivia's kit and turn it into an advantage as you go into a match. Whereas with Nocturne or Set, you know, when you get a lead with those guys, you kind of run away with the game. So, yeah, really good point. I think you're right. Like getting Smooth Criminal on something with a little bit more, you know, maneuverability and playmaking potential. Big emphasis for these guys. Yeah.
All right, and then looking over at JGE, of course, we only have 3 matches of data to work with them as they're going into this matchup versus Coach Diff, but we do see very different comps. We don't see a lot of the consistency of the same picks over and over and over like we do with Coach Diff. Instead, we have 3 different unique picks for that Decker guy, 3 for Casey the Knight. Evray Azoth is the only one on JGE that has duplicated a champion pick in 3 weeks, and that was just the Annie. But Fixing Mantella, 3 different ADCs, Erudite, 3 different supports. This is another team that has shown that it's how do you target them? Where do you target those bans?
Yeah, Casey the Knight especially has come through and been dominant with a couple of these jungle picks, and I think actually that's probably, if I had to pick one player on this team that you had to maybe solo out, it would be KC as far as trying to get rid of, you know, any junglers that have the ability to kind of take over the game. But with only 5 bans, you know, I mean, you really have to play. You have to play the counter game, right? Where you are expecting them to pick this champion, and you want to get this other champion that plays well into that, and that requires a lot of experience with the game. So, you know, if you're new to the role or you're, you know, halfway experienced and you've got maybe 5 or 6 champions under your belt, it's going to be tough to deal with someone or a team like this where week to week they can play anything, right? And you don't know what to expect, so you can go in with one game plan, and then, you know, 2 picks into the pick ban phase, you realize, oh, they're not doing that anymore. They've switched, and now all of our picks and bans have been for nothing, and they duped us. So yeah, I think it's a combination of KC having a really dominant couple of games, but also, I mean, these guys are coaches, right? And playing the pick ban game really well has worked out for them.
Yeah, and one of the thing with JGE too is like that Decker guy on a highlight had the crazy Fiora game into Team Tragedy. He built
Yep.
Hullbreaker. That was the first match of Coach Rivals where Hullbreaker was featured, and nearly ended the game when, if I remember correctly, I think JGE was at a deficit at that point. But either way, it was a
Mhm.
really close play. He took out a tier two, a tier three, and a Nexus tower before taking out the second Nexus tower.
Yep.
But he plays a lot of these split pushers. I think Mordekaiser is going to be strong in a solo lane. Nocturne strong in a solo lane. Fiora, obviously strong in a solo lane, but then when you look back at Coach Diff, you have the stylistic difference where you have Hernandez Teaches playing a Set who wants to get in the middle of a fight and face break, the Gnar who wants to hop in and Mega Gnar, you have the Viego that wants to do resets. So stylistically, these teams are very different. In the mid lane, Evray Azoth plays more kind of the same way that Dr. Strangeglove and Major Queso Destroyer plays on Coach Diff. He's playing more of a weaker lane where I'm going to play Annie, I can easily farm up, and then if it really comes down to it, I can draw my ult and delete a carry because, I mean, with Annie, let's face it, once you have your stun up, you can face roll the keyboard and blow up a squishy target, right?
It's funny.
Yeah, and the Anivia can scale up and still be useful. So you do have these very different teams moving into this match. And so I thought it was really cool to look at what they've done in the past and then identify what this team's composition structure normally ends up being. And we see that consistent across these matches. So as we went into our featured week 5 match, this is what the pick a ban phase looked like. Bans coming through. Coach Diff did target the jungle 4 out of 5 picks, banning Zen, Diana, Rek'Sai, and Lee Sin. They did throw a Malzahar ban towards Evray Azoth, which I know I'm interested to see Taylor play the Malzahar. I think Malzahar is a great champion. It's just it's just like you can have no brain and just hard push the lane. Like you just keep putting the your dot on the wave and just endlessly push it, and it's very frustrating to play into that because like I can't get out of lane because this guy just keeping me here, constantly shoving into my tower. So I really want to see Taylor get his hands on Malzahar eventually. On the side of JGE, they targeted the Viego. They did get rid of the Viego. They left open the Set. They got rid of Viego, Brand, and Nocturne, and then got rid of a Mumu as well, but they did ban the Varus. So this is the first game that we saw Dr. Strangeglove on something other than Varus. So once we got into the picks, as you can see on the screen, for those of you listening, Coach Diff opened up with Set. That was their prio pick. They opened up with Set. JGE answered with Annie and Urgot. Urgot, which we've seen one other time in Coach Rivals this season. So this is the second pick for Urgot. Coach Diff answered with the Seraphine, which we expected, and then busting out the Sylas for a Smooth Criminal. So I really wanted to see the Sylas because this Sylas is more of a playmaker than the Anivia, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what we were calling. Smooth Criminal plays Ari, he plays Nocturne, right? Kind of these playmaking mid laners, and Sylas is a really powerful playmaking mid laner, taking enemy ults, using them against them. I mean, doesn't get much cooler than that, right? So I love seeing Sylas come in, and I like the Malzahar ban from Coach Diff because again, we were just talking about the stylistic differences between these teams. Evray Azoth's style is very much Malzahar,
Mm-hmm.
right? So taking that away from him, making sure that that's not even an option, and then they immediately lock in the Annie pick. You could tell that if that Malzahar hadn't been banned, it was probably going to get picked up as that first red side pick there. So really great ban. And then it almost kind of felt like Coach Diff played the pick ban game really well up until the second phase. And I mean, really great phase for both teams overall. But I think Just Good Enough played the second phase of the pick bans better than Coach Diff did. After the second phase of bans come through, because that Varus ban that you mentioned, I think it really caught Coach Diff off guard. they're like, who would even ban Varys right
Mhm.
now? There's no ADC bans on the board, right? Why would they ban Varys? He's not even, the strongest pick right now. But credit to JGE for realizing that that was an emphasis for Coach Diff and taking it away, right? Taking it off the board, and it forced them into a really. I don't think this is the comp they wanted when they had to lock in the Senna. So once they got the Senna in there to partner up with Seraphine, I felt like, okay, that's a lane that can definitely get something done, but against a Lux Caitlyn bot lane, that's a really big ask, and it kind of played out that way as the match went on too. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah, for sure.
yeah, go ahead.
I think when you look back at Coach Diff's team comps, the reason why this Varys and the Seraphine work so well for them is because you look at some of the junglers and the top lanes that they want to play. They're playing a top lane that really wants to get in your face. The set wants to jump in there. The Gnar wants to jump in there. The Viego wants to jump in there. And even Mathieu Ledoux playing the Udyr and the Viego himself and the Rumble, who needs to get up close and personal for the Flame Spitter to do some work. I mean, they like to charge at them and then use that Seraphine and the Varus to lock down the enemy so they can't do anything. Looking at this pick, the Senna did force them to pivot, or the Varus ban forced Coach Diff to pivot and bring in something else and show a different look. But I really like the Senna with this, even though it kind of felt like it did put Coach Diff on the back foot a little bit. I like the Senna because it still kind of goes with that mindset of I'm seeing this one particular pathway. Let's run at that pathway because the Senna can queue and heal everybody in a straight line. And so it works, I think, really well with the Seraphine, with those, we want to charge forward in this direction. This is the direction we're going. Let's go. So they did, as you said, the JGE answered with Lux Caitlyn, and then Coach Diff brought in the Senna, and the Elise is where I got derailed. And I was fortunate enough to be able to commentate with this match along with Coop and Piper Maru, but I didn't like the Elise, and I made that pretty evident. And that's just an old man's opinion. I don't think the Elise fits in with the type of comp that Coach Diff typically runs. Of let's charge in the straight line. Elise is really focused on picks. Elise is very early game. Now, Mathieu Ledoux did try to balance that out with going Dark Harvest, and I think it worked really well. But by the time we got to late game, and you start to see, okay, if that Elise can no longer get picks because JGE is just grouping together, then what do you do in that sort of situation? So they're very reliant on getting ahead very, very early and then snowballing to victory. But the longer this game went, it went to 39 minutes. That at least becomes less and less effective. You've got to try to split push to be able to make things happen. But the problem with Coach Diff trying to split push with this kind of comp is they have the Senna Seraphine, who are more supportive champions. Well, you're not even utilizing their kit. They want to group up. So it was a very mismatched kind of comp. You have the Elise that wants to get picks, but then you have the Senna and the Seraphine that want to group together because they offer buffs to the entire team. So I felt like there was a little bit of an identity crisis with the Coach Diff draft. But they did really well. We'll talk about that as we get into it. And then JGE, of course, wrapped up with a Sejuani pick. And that's when we'll get into how the game went. So Mathieu Ledoux may have heard me in cast like, yeah, I'm going to show this moron that the Elise pick is really good. And he really did snowball early. Finishing with 21, 6, and 8 with the KDA, 141 CS. Really putting a lot of pressure on JGE early and getting up to, I think by the time the end of the game, he was sitting at 24 Dark Harvest stacks, possibly even more. But because that game went to 39-48, JGE was actually able to pull it off in the end.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the stats right now, kind of geeking, man. Like that Decker guy, how did you finish with the exact same CS as Hernandez teaches? That's pretty incredible. That's talent. And you got 3 10s there. I'm gonna give you a fourth 10, right? 10, 10, 10. Let's say I'm going to give you another 10 for your performance. Awesome job. That's another 10. No, but really though, I love seeing the stat sheets because they tell the story of the match at a glance, right? And to your point about Matthew Ledoux, right? His impact on the game starts out. The trajectory is up and up and up and up as
Mhm.
he's getting these Dark Seal stacks and all this stuff. I mean, he was really getting to a point of power, and Eric on the other side playing the Sejuani, really a much more kind of a slow plodding course to get to that point where you're powerful towards the end of the game. So they almost had like kind of an inverse relationship. As Sejuani started to get more tanky and more powerful, Elise begins to lose some of her effect on the game. So
Mhm.
at some point, there's a break point, and these two start impacting the game in different ways. And you see it happen during the match. I mean, there were a couple of pretty awesome moments. So Matthew Ledoux, uh, I mean, started to run away with this game. Right, there were a lot of picks. He had a huge bounty for quite a long time. They had control over the Dragon Pit. They got 3 out of the first 4 dragons. Both of the Rift Heralds went to Coach Diff. So really great objective focus. Matthew Ledoux was also doing a lot of counter jungling, getting into Eric's side of the map, and basically just being a menace. And that's exactly what you want to do when you're Elise, right? A couple of really great ganks in the mid lane shut Annie down. You saw every Azov had one of his toughest games so far this season, finishing 0-11 and 15. I mean, not a single kill to your name, and the most deaths. You can tell that obviously Elise was visiting mid lane very often.
Mhm.
And when you get lockdown CC the way Elise does, and you can layer that with other kinds of like Senna has her kind of AOE lockdown. You've got Seraphine who has the taunt, and you're basically moving in slow motion, so it's pretty easy to follow up with the web from Elise. Um, you don't see the typical like Renekton stun, Elise stun type of combo here, but I think this still kind of works. These guys have enough CC to layer in, and you kind of saw it come through for most of the game. Coach Diff was I mean, till about the 25-minute mark, they were in control of this game pretty handily. And JGE kind of just slowly clawed back into it, from a combination of things, from Senna being so far down in CS for most of the game. Uh, they finished about, Dr. Strangeglove only had about a 40-38 CS difference from fixing Mantella. It was pretty much 40 CS difference the entire game. So once fixing Mantella got that lead about, 10 minutes in, he never let go of it. So uh, really strong performance there to shut the Senna down. 1-7 and 17. She didn't have a very good game. A lot of deaths, almost the most on the team. So not a huge impact necessarily. Whereas normally with the Varus, you'd see the exact opposite. So quite a few storylines here. In the end, just good enough. Did come out on top. And man, what a game! I got to give. I don't know if we want to go into MVP
Go
yet,
for it.
but
Yeah, yeah. Go
I'm
ahead.
gonna throw it out there. Okay, so MVP, I typically call out a player, right, for being excellent, for having a moment in the match that turned things around. There's any number of reasons, maybe a couple of triple kills or something. I got to give MVP this week. I'm probably gonna. It's Erudite, right? That's how you say his name.
Mhm.
Erudite. Okay, dude. Okay, so right around the 38-minute mark, you guys win a fight. JDE does, and you guys immediately go to the Baron pit, right? And Lux sticks around. Erudite sticks around, kills off a control ward right in front of Baron. So now Coach Diff is blind. They're like, oh man, they're doing Baron. Guys, we gotta go, we gotta go. And they start funneling into Baron. So, okay, 1, you got rid of that ward. Excellent job. 2, before recalling or doing anything else, Erudite wraps around to the Tri-Brush, places a ward there, and then hangs out, waits for the rest of his team to show up.
Mhm.
That ward and the Tri-Brush, not single-handedly, but kind of single-handedly won just good enough the game. Like, they saw the split as because all four members of Coach Diff were sitting on top of that ward, two split to the top of the Baron pit, two split to the bottom. Just Good Enough got to see all of this because that ward was right there. They take out the two members on top, win the team fight, get the ace, and instead of going for the Baron, they say, let's end the game, end it right there. Boom, it was over. So MVP goes to the Lux, to Erudite, but really MVP goes to that ward. Oh my God, that ward in the tri-brush was the MVP of the match, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's huge, and this match did. If for those of you that didn't see it, it was Coach Diff having the gold lead for pretty much the entire game and
Yeah.
winning out on fights because they were able to. Mathieu Ledoux was able to snag a pick before usually a team fight really started. So then they have the 5v4 advantage. And then you have Dr. Strangeglove and Major Queso Destroyer raining buffs down on top of the Set and the Silas to do work. Now, this is where I don't like the Elise pick because in scrappy fights like that, what does the Elise do? Like, the Elise is like more for assassination, and it's not like she's not like an Evelynn that's going to sneak around behind the team fight and assassinate your carry and then ult away and get out. Elise is like she's got to get the drop on you, really. So that's where I think the Elise didn't really fit in because it's not like a scrappy pick in these brawls where it's a pure on like 5v5 or maybe some scattered fights or something like that. But yeah, you're exactly right. Like Coach Diff had such a really good lead, and they were utilizing the Senna and the Seraphine really well. But that very last fight, Senna was in the mid lane. Sejuani answered the Senna. And then we saw the other two members of Coach Diff split, as you said, around that Baron pit. And as soon as that ward in the tri-brush spotted that, JGE pounced on him and said, we have a numbers advantage here. We're going to go 4-on-2. And shout out to that Decker guy. He got the ult on, I believe it was Hernandez Teaches, to get the ult. And for Urgot, once he gets the ult and the ult finalizes inside of his body, he does an AoE fear around him. So he timed eating the Set, flashed into the Baron pit to fear both Silas and Elise. I could have my champions mixed up right now, but he did flash in for a fear on two members of Coach Diff, which had them locked up for a second in that Baron pit and allowed Fixing Mantella to just rain down shots. So I think, maybe Coach Diff, once that split, I think that really did hurt them. I think they did have a commanding way to win this game as long as they were able to continue to get picks on JGE. But the only way they're going to force picks on JGE is to force JGE to face check. And we saw them bait the Dragon Soul. Dragon Soul was about to be taken by Coach Diff, and instead of starting the Dragon Soul, at least sat in a brush and picked off Erudite. Well, boom, we just win that fight. Now we can do whatever we want because I have a numbers advantage on the map. But when in a pure 5v5, once it gets to this late game and you have Urgot is tanky, Sejuani is tanky, the Caitlyn has enough items where she can have a little bit of survivability and just sit in the back and just rain down shots. I think it kind of tilted in favor of JGE near the end, but yeah, a huge call out on the MVP. I really like that.
Yeah, man, that ward for president, bro, that thing was epic.
So this is what the damage chart looked like, and this kind of where I go back to. I think maybe like an Udyr would be really good for Coach Diff. They're more of a scrappy, in your face. Even an Olaf, I think, would have been really good. For Coach Diff in this game. The damage from the Elise is huge. Caitlyn obviously topping the damage charts there, but the Elise did so much damage. So Caitlyn with the most, that's fixing Mantella on the Caitlyn, had most damage in the game. Mathieu Ledoux on the Elise with second most. That Decker guy rounding up the top 3 in damage charts on the Urgot. Just be able to sit in the middle of the team fight and let your shotgun knees, do the work. So
what a weird phrase.
I mean, it's more, yeah. You don't hear that in any other context, right?
Yeah, just let your shotgun knees do the work, man.
So yeah, solid win for JGE, and that's where it brings us to our current standings of Team Coach Diff still sitting in first. So we kind of elephant in the room. JGE did have to field a sub. Eric 29 was subbing in for them, so that does count as a forfeit in Coach Rivals rules. So JGE did forfeit, but they brought in the sub so we could have a match to stream. So major props to JGE for not looking for a reschedule and still giving us this awesome match to be able to watch. So even though they did pick up the win in the standings, it does count as a forfeit. So Coach Diff still sitting at the top of the standings at 4-1. And then JGE still tied for fourth with Hotline Ping. Hotline Ping sitting at 2-1 and JGE sitting at 2-2. So with 4.5 weeks done, because we're gonna have a lot of makeup matches this week, I did want to view the data for just a second. I know we're running out of time because we're sitting at, I think, an hour and 45-ish minutes. So I think 2 hours is the hard maximum. But go through the data real quick. We did have 3 additional unique champion picks in the Elise, the Silas, and the Senna, and all 3 of these champions came from Team Coach Diff. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, really flexing on him, man. Like showing us you guys still got stuff in the bottom of the bag there. A few more tricks up your sleeve. Can't wait to see what you guys got left in there.
Highest pick ban presence. So we see the comparison now between week 4 and week 5. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We had 9 champions over 50% PB presence in week 4. After week 4.5, we're only down to 5 champions that have over 50% PB presence. That's Morgana, Caitlyn, Nocturne, Diana, and Varus. So these are the champions that are showing up the most in the pick ban phase. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with PB presence, it's basically a combination of their pick rate and their ban rate. So Morgana sitting at 79% PB rate. She's present in nearly every champ select phase in Coach Rival Season 2. Your 100% win rate champs, sorry, Hernandez teaches, but Set is no longer in the 100% win rate column. Even though they are credited with the win for the standings, Set got his first loss this past week.
Yeah, you lost that game, my boy. No, we talked about this before we started. It's like, do we keep him in? Do we not? Now we got to take Set out, man, because that was technically an L, even though you were granted the win. A little controversial, but Set's dominance on the league has finally come to an end, potentially. Great win rate regardless, but now Nocturne is the only one sitting at 4 games played and 4 wins.
Yeah, big Nocturne, deal. Yeah, he's king of the mountain right now, so we'll see if anything happens with him. Obviously, some adjustments on his laning phase coming in next patch, so we'll see how that impacts him. Some more data here. 0% win rate champs. These are all the champions that have more than 1 pick but have yet to get a win. And those are consistent from week 4 to week 5. So we'll just kind of list them real quick. The Lulu, Gnar, Amumu, Kog'Maw, Veigar, and Rammus. All sitting at 2 picks but 0 wins. That did not change between week 4 and week 5. Most picked champs across CR Season 2 right now has dwindled a little bit. These are all champions that are picked more than 30%. Across the league. It's dwindled from, I think, 11 down to 6. So Nautilus, Varus, Anivia, Caitlyn, Seraphine, and Set still sitting as most picked champs. So surely we'll see something. We saw the Varus ban come through, as you mentioned, and I think that was his very first ban, I believe. Wow. In CR, he's mostly been picked, so we'll see how that impacts moving forward. And then finally, the most banned champs from week 4 to week 5. This list drops from roughly 11 down to about 7 names. So Morgana, obviously at the top, Diana, Nocturne, Lulu, Tristana, Brand, and Malzahar. And I really think the Malzahar, because they don't want to give it to Taylor. They don't want to give it to
no games. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, so 36% ban rate. He hasn't been able to touch it yet. But wow. I like the Nocturne is on there, the Lulu is on there, and the Tristana is on there. Those are 3 champions that were in our champions we hate to play against, either from us or from our listener submissions. So I think it's pretty cool that 3 of the champions were from what we had talked about previous.
And I'm out. Yeah, that I'm surprised no one brought up Morgana now that you mention it. Just throwing that out there.
Just throwing it out there. All right, so let's preview our featured week 6 match that's going to be happening this Thursday night. I believe this match is at the 7 p.m. Central Time slot. Coop may be able to correct me, but just double check that. But we're going to look at Immortals versus Deathcap for Cutie. This is a match that's going to be coming up this Thursday night. Immortals, a very rough start to their season. Ronnie sitting at 0-3. But you see the teams that they've lost to. So kind of like Patty said in a previous episode where she was posting in chat, she said the record is not indicative of the quality of the team, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, really the top 3 teams currently, right, as far as standings go, 3 of the top 4 teams, they've lost on both sides. Hotline Ping, Team Tragedy have been losses for both of these teams. So Deathcap getting that surprise win at the end of last week was the only reason that they're not basically in the exact same position Immortals is in. So tough start. You got to play every team at least once before we make it to playoffs. So these guys are getting their lumps out of the way early, and hopefully they'll have a smoother ride going forward.
Yeah, for sure. So Immortals coming into this 0-3, and then Deathcap for Cutie, as you just mentioned, picking up the win over Coach Diff. They do have a win over the team on the right as well, but also lost to Hotline Ping, also lost to Team Tragedy. So I think this match coming up Thursday is going to be a really good barometer for Immortals as far as where they're standing, because you could argue that Immortals has had a really tough schedule based on the standings, right?
They could still finish. I mean, they might be the 4th best team in the league for all we know. They've just lost to the other top 3 teams. So I've still got faith in Immortals, I believe.
So let's take a look a little bit at these teams. We'll put a spotlight on them. We'll take a look at Immortals first. The team consisting of Blue Dragon 9450 in the top lane, Mesrith in the jungle, Aiden in the mid lane, who we heard earlier, and a listener submission. English teacher at ADC, and Coach Mustang, also one of our participates a lot in our podcast in the chat, coming in at support. So looking at, these are the comps they normally run, and kind of looking at it compared to what we saw earlier from Coach Diff and JGE, this team plays the game very differently.
Yeah, you can tell they like to get, some of that, what do we say, that prime beef on their team. They try to get some of that prime beef, that steak right on the front line. So they go with the Rammus, Mundo, Garen, Renekton, Vi, right, Leona. These are all beefy champions, and they're gonna basically enable Aiden, an English teacher, to do a lot of damage, right? Mm-hmm. They got the Tristana, the Caitlyn, the Ashe. These are all pretty damage-centric champions. The Ashe maybe not quite as much, more utility, but the other two definitely very damage-focused. And then Aiden, really showed us his stuff with the Xerath in week 1, and since then has continued to make an impact on his games. I'd like to see the damage charts at the end of this one once we do get to see it in action, because I would bet you that Aiden is pretty high up there. Because this team does have, that's their comp, right? The 3 of us are going to stand here and make sure you 2 are safe and you 2 can do all your damage. So it's going to be up to Aiden and English teacher to really be dishing out a lot of damage, but it's up to the rest of the team to unlock them to do so.
Yeah, and I think Mesrith is one of the players that does play some of these off-meta junglers. You see him play Rammus. He plays the Mundo. He plays Fiddlesticks. He does play Nocturne. So when people scout him, you see a lot of that in his champion history. But when you look at those champions, they are effective, but I think teams are less likely to throw a ban their way because they feel like they can more easily deal with the Mundo or the Rammus, as opposed to just saying, oh, let's ban them. But they may, I don't know, I'm not really sure how teams are viewing that, but he does tend to play those off meta. I like that Blue Dragon's bringing in the Renekton, the Garen, the Vi, strong solo laners. I really like the Vi pick versus Hotline Ping. Mm-hmm. I thought that was awesome. You can lock down the ADC. I think they were playing into a Vayne, so I liked the Vi pick. It didn't work out. There were a couple of blunders, and we talked about like item builds and selection like that. We had some Swifties coming through for some members. There were no plated steel caps across the whole team into a vein. So little things like that I think Immortals can clean up. But ultimately, like, they do show flexibility in draft. You know, like you say, they bring in the Vi as an answer to the Vayne. Aiden can show, he's shown proficiency on all of these AP mid laners and can be a real huge threat. And then Coach Mustang, really big on these enchanters to buff up English teachers. So kind of like you said, they bring the beef. They bring the beef in top and mid. You expect to have beef in top and mid, and then they play a very standard, straightforward kind of comp. We put the front line out there, and we let our artillery mid laner, kind of do some work. Our AP high damage mid laner and our ADC kind of rain down that damage. Just unfortunately, they've been unable to scrap together a win so far.
Yeah, I want to see Coach Mustang on another enchanter support. Maybe Lux, maybe Karma, maybe the Lulu again, right? Give us something, maybe not the Lux as much, but give us something, right? Like more enchanter style, because I think that fits your play style a little more. And yeah, the rest of the team, I mean, you guys have been so close a couple times. Just keep it up. Don't get discouraged.
And I think this is a matchup where we could potentially, like, I think this is a great stylistic matchup for Immortals. I think the mid lane matchup is going to be great between Aiden and Sones. We'll take a look at Deathcat for Cutie here in just a second. But I think this could be a really good matchup for Mesrith in the jungle to be able to generate a lead and kind of run away with the game. As we look over at Deathcat for Cutie, you see a very different type of team comp. Less like heavy beef and let these high damage AP mid laners, and then the ADC kind of rain down damage. You see the Mordekaiser in the top lane, 3 different games for Coach Dubs. You have Apocalypse in the jungle running Warwick 2 different games. Sones bringing in Orianna, Anivia, Ahri, and Orianna again, and Shiny Ninetales bringing in the range with the Caitlyn in 3 of the 4 games. Rogue Otters not bringing really a Leona, but he does bring 2 different Rakan games and the Thresh. So both of these teams very stylistically different.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit, right? Sones and that Orianna, man, it's deadly, right? But I didn't realize Apocalypse was. You'd mentioned that he plays Warwick. But I also like that the Volibear is very similar in terms, like lifesteal, and they just kind of run at you, and so really cool. I like that choice from these guys. But far and away, Shiny Ninetales on the Caitlyn has been the most consistent as far as like week to week making an impact on the game. So I want to see Shiny Ninetales on the Caitlyn again, even though that seems a little boring, right? I want to see it again because the Caitlyn plays have been epic. Rogue Otters really made a big impact this past week with the Rakan being kind of in the opponent's face, making those plays with the knockups, being the ball delivery system for Sones. They tried it in week 1, it worked. They tried it in week 4, it worked. Maybe it's working. And then the Mordekaiser too. Again, another one of those kind of anchors of their team composition. If they can get them moored, and then get a couple of these other pieces, I think they're going to have, really easy time kind of exerting their will over the game and a clear path to victory for sure.
Yeah, I like that you point out Apocalypse. Apocalypse is playing some more of these self-sustaining, easy to just power farm junglers. So like, as you mentioned, the Warwick, the Volibear, and then the Nocturne has sustain on his passive, right? He auto attacks like 3 times, and he does AoE, and I think he heals off of it potentially. But yeah, so easy to farm. Like you can easily burn through camps. But one of the really cool things about those types of junglers is you don't need your team to get those neutral objectives. So you can basically go. So I think Trundle would be another really good jungler for Apocalypse. Yeah. I can just stay in the jungle, I can farm my camps, and as long as my laners have pressure, then I can go take Drake, and I don't need you here. So that's kind of for Deathcat for Cutie, I think that could be the angle that they're going with. Let's put Apocalypse on these junglers where Apocalypse doesn't have to gank. And with a Caitlyn in the bot lane, Caitlyn's going to assert a lot of pressure because of her range. So Shiny and Ninetales, Peter down there in the bot lane, who English teacher is putting in chat now, we will not be seeing Peter on Caitlyn. So I'm assuming there's going to be a ban heading towards Caitlyn. But, Shiny Ninetales can get lane prio bot side pretty easily just with range and harassing with the range, and then that gives Apocalypse free reign to go take the jungler or take the dragon as long as Sones is getting pressure in the mid lane. So it's very dependent on that, and then Shine Ninetales being able to roam up. So I feel like that's a really good strategy for them, but when you look on the side of Immortals, you don't have that as much with Rammus. Like, Rammus doesn't really take Drake super quickly and easily, right? There's not a lot of damage built into his kit. He's more tanky, so he would be more reliant on having his laners help him out and come in towards the dragon or the Rift Herald to help take that. So very different play styles here. But looking at Deathcat for Cutie, as you mentioned, you said this, the ball delivery system, these are the only 2 wins that Deathcat for Cutie have when it's an Orianna with the Rakan. And that's not the only reason they won the game, obviously, but it is a really good go button for the team, and we've talked about that before. Sometimes making team comps just really simple, just dumb it down and say, okay, what is our wombo combo, could be our win condition. We want to group, and then as soon as our ultimates are up, we just layer our ultimates on the enemy team and just do a bunch of damage. And that is kind of what Deathcat for Cutie has done and found success in. The Mordekaiser can take a high priority target out of the fight. The Rakan jumps in with the Orianna ball on him, and you have the shockwave onto the back line. Meanwhile, Caitlyn has the range. She can stay safe all the way in the back of the fight. She's not in any sort of danger or threat. She doesn't have to get up close and personal, so she could just rain the damage down while the shockwave is keeping people kind of in place. But on the side of Immortals, it's different, right? The Mundo wants to charge at people like it's very telegraphed. The Rammus wants to charge at people very telegraphed. So Immortals plays a very different style of League of Legends than Deathcap. So it's going to be really interesting to see the clash of these two. And I didn't plan on doing this, but we look at this. Do we see the Orianna Rakan come out? Do Immortals ban the Orianna Rakan?
Yeah, I think so. So when I coach, right, and I've got players who are maybe a little newer to the game, maybe they don't have, a whole season of experience under them. I look for easy to execute go buttons like you're talking about, right? Like a Blitzcrank. You pull somebody in, oh, guess what? That's our target. He's right in front of us. I pulled him into the team. It's really easy to figure out because League of Legends is a really complex game. There's a lot of stuff going on at any moment. You look at the screen and your focus might be on the left corner, might be up here on the right, might be on the other side of the map. And so to keep things simple and get a ball delivery system with the Orianna, Rakan, even the Nocturne works as well. I think that's such a great win condition, right, for team fight wins and things like that. That's got to be a point of emphasis for these guys. I really hope we do get to see the Orianna Rakan combo again. But, we've talked about it before too. That's not the only way, right? You could also do Orianna Jarvan. You could do there's lots of other ways you can accomplish that. So I hope Deathcap, if that's a focus, right? If Orianna is in fact the win condition for you guys, and that's one of your really big emphasis points, lock it in first pick, right? And then figure out another way to make it fit your team composition. So that way, you don't have to go Ori Rakan or something like that. You can be a little flexible with it and still kind of accomplish what you want. But Sones on that Orianna, man, I totally understand why it's a priority for him because that Orianna is deadly.
All right, so I'm giving you the responsibility of if you're the head coach for Deathcat for Cutie, you want Orianna first pick.
Yeah.
Prio on Orianna.
Yes.
Okay. Any other draft? Who do you ban?
Man, I think
so you're the coach for Deathcat for Cutie, okay? So you're prio picking Ori. What bans do you throw towards Immortals?
I gotta get rid of, man. If I'm blue side, I don't ban the Caitlyn, right? And I pick Caitlyn, right?
Okay.
Ah, man, I don't know. God, that's so tough. So yeah, as far as bans go, I guess I would get rid of the Zerath because that Zerath game from Aiden was so strong.
Hmm.
You got to ban out probably the Lux because Coach Mustang hasn't gotten to play it yet for a reason, right? So get rid of that. And then the third ban, man, I don't know exactly. Probably the Tristana, right? Just to
Hmm.
kind of, it's something that a lot of people don't like to deal with. But that'd probably be my three bands
Okay.
if I were the coach of Death Cap. What about you?
Okay, so that I think that's really cool because when we look at that, the three champions that you're saying to target and get rid of, right? You
Yeah,
have Zareth, who is never going to be close enough to be tagged by the Oriana Shockwave, right?
yeah,
He's going to rain down artillery from a distance. English
yeah.
teacher on the Tristana can W you out of it. You know, you can rocket jump out of this, and then the Lux can long range snare and ult through. So you really you are kind of banning to enable your comp with the Ori to get that ball placed and do a ton of damage. So I really like that. That was really cool.
I mean, I'm not a genius, but if you're just gonna throw it out there like that, no, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so on the side of Immortals, if I'm on Immortals, I am going to really hard target that jungle matchup.
Hmm.
I'm likely looking to ban out the Oriana. I would want to get rid of it because we've seen how much success they've had on it. And here's the thing: when you look at Deathcap's comp, if you ban the Rakan, then Zach can just play something else to be a ball delivery system, right?
Hmm.
The even the Nocturne can come in as a ball delivery system. The Volibear can be a ball delivery system. So you kind of go back to at the core, what is the one pick that you can get rid of that would completely eliminate that comp, and that would be the Oriana.
Yep.
Just easily just ban the Oriana, and so it doesn't matter if they pick Rakan. Now Rakan is still a powerful pick in and of itself, and so it is Nocturne and all that stuff. But getting rid of the Oriana doesn't make you. It allows you to leave the Rakan up and not feel like, well, let's get rid of all the ball delivery options. No, you just get rid of the ball, right?
Yeah.
The Oriana, I would say get rid of. I would say on the side of Immortals, I would play a heavy invade, super aggressive jungler. I would be getting in the face of Apocalypse because Apocalypse wants to farm safely.
Hmm.
Apocalypse wants to be able to farm up and be able to sneak those Drakes and sneak the Rift Heralds without having to rely upon the team. So for Immortals, I would pick a strong dueling jungler. Something like a Graves, really strong dueling potential.
Yes. Let's see
Yeah,
Graves.
yeah. Let's see Graves. Maybe even something like the Diana in the jungle. I think the Diana in the jungle can get far ahead. I think Jarvan would be really good with the mobility, getting into it. So I think you pick Jarvan for Deathcap. I'm thinking Jarvan would be a good pick for Immortals because you can get on that backline. It would be easier to get on Shiny Ninetales, who likes to sit in the back. Because you look at Shiny Ninetales comps, right? Or Shiny Ninetales picks. Caitlyn,
Hmm.
long range. Kog'Maw, artillery, long range. You've got to get on that back line. So having something that's hyper aggressive in the jungle, that's going to go in and maybe steal jungle camps from the enemy team. I think even an Ivern, I think, would be really cool here, especially if you want to
Ooh.
play a more supportive jungle. You can easily take enemy jungle camps. Now, you don't have the dueling potential on an Ivern, but it does allow you to set up English Teacher to be more of a carry with if you build Ardent Sensor on the Ivern and build them up, and then kind of build a team around that ADC, and then allowing your top lane like Blue Dragon go the Vi again to be able to take out Shiny Ninetales. I mean, there's just a lot of possibilities with it, but that's what I would say. I would say we need to go hard aggro on jungle. We don't want to tank in the jungle. Let's go super duel. We can even go like Bruiser J4 and make something happen. Punish Apocalypse, who wants to farm safely, and get in Apocalypse's face, take some of those camps, starve out the jungle so that they can't easily take those neutral objectives early.
How dare you take my pick? No, you heard it here first, guys. Jarvan is the contested pick of the match. No, honestly, I think Jarvan's such a cool champion, and he fits both these team comps. You're right, and with the new Stridebreaker changes, Jarvan with Stridebreaker, we talked about it last week. He's strong, man. He's got that 90% slow. He's got the shield on his E. He's also got his W. He's also got the ability to just kind of get in your face and lock you down. So yeah, I like it. I like it for Deathcap because of the Oriana. But if Oriana's banned out, then yeah, I think definitely it's a really good fit for Immortals too. Please give us some Jarvan guys, only if it makes sense, or ban it. Just ban the Jarvan, and then I
Yeah,
can't
just ban
complain.
it.
Yeah,
And make our predictions completely wrong. I like it.
yeah.
Well, very cool. That is going to wrap it up for us today. I know that we've got some Immortals team members in the chat who are saying, wait, this segment's really cool. They're doing scouting for us. And then they started to hate the segment later on because we're telling them who to ban and all that stuff. Like if we were the coaches, that's what we would do. But
Yeah.
either way, that is going to be our promoted feature match for this coming Thursday. By the way, we do have Coach Mustang in chat. She is saying, letting you know that she practiced some Yumi for you, Ronnie.
Yes.
Yeah, so she was my support. We had played some normal draft games, and it was a Yumi game. It was a Yumi game. We'll just leave
I
it
love
at that.
it.
I may have hard entered early, which completely trashed her Yumi game.
Did she leave you behind for the top laner at some point?
No. She was a trooper. She stuck with me even though I fed. So I did appreciate that. But I take all the blame for that being a terrible game.
Bummer.
So yeah, either way, thank y'all so much for being here. This is the match that we're promoting, so make sure you check this one out. That is happening this Thursday night, I believe, at 7 p.m. Central, right here on the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/CoachRivals. For those of you on the podcast, sorry you couldn't see all of our cool graphics, but this VOD will be uploaded onto YouTube. Be sure to check that out at our YouTube channel, which is the same name, Coach Rivals, and catch all of our updates that happen on Twitter with the same name, you guessed it, Coach Rivals, and check us out at coachrivals.gg. That's going to do it for us here. Signing off for episode 5. I'm Justin T, and again, joined by my revered Texas State champ co-host, Ronnie B. Thank you for being here with us and making this a great podcast.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I don't know how we did it, Justin, but we managed to do our longest one yet, even with only one game to review. I love talking to you about League of Legends. I could do this all day. This is fantastic, man.
Very cool. All right, well, thank you all so much for being here. We'll see you Thursday night, and then we'll see you next week for another episode of Rift Happens.